Yep. I think we're live.
Alrighty. Hey, Facebook, how are you? Welcome to the Money Show. Please share the show. Actually, we're going to continue this week on what we talked about last week, which was, I don't know, because the notes I have, the name of the show on the top of my paper.
The Wealth Equation Part 2.
Okay, the Wealth Equation Part 2.
We won't repeat your title.
Because remember, they wouldn't let me name it what I wanted to name it last week, but that's the name that I have on top of my piece of paper, my notes here. But thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate it. We are actually just getting back from Charlotte. Shout out to Charlotte. Charlotte showed up for the Born to Multiply book tour. I actually taught 3 hours in Charlotte. Baltimore only taught 2 hours, and I told Robert, I was like, now the people in Baltimore are going to be like, you gave them an hour more than you gave us, and sure enough, this week, today.
Adam already getting love. Hey, Adam, I love you. Oh, hey, family, I love you, Adam.
What
happened? I don't know who it was from.
What happened to the love for Robert and I? We get that a lot.
I love you, Adam, with the heart emojis.
Listen, when people walk through the door in Charlotte, people were asking, is your son Adam here? No, Adam is not here.
I had to sell tea.
Adam to sell tea.
Tea pusher.
For 8 hours in the 90-degree weather across from the White House.
Hey, but you made money, right? Okay. Anything
Profitable
over zero is a plus. So if you had a
day.
profitable day, then that's what matters. And so it was kind of crazy in here on Friday because, everybody's going. Rob and I are trying to get ready for the tour, to go out of town. Adam was trying to get ready. It was like a zoo around here. It was really funny. We should have videotaped the behind the scenes at the Hollands when you have a household full of entrepreneurs. But we're going to start. We want to pick up where we left off last week, and we really want to finish it and talking about the wealth equation. So this is part 2. Last week we started off with a quote from Andrew Young, and I wanted to repeat that quote because it was very important to setting the tone for how we actually what we talk about today. And so the quote, Andrew Young said this: Dr. King and I integrated the lunch counter, but we never integrated the dollar. And to live in a system of free enterprise and yet not understand the rules of free enterprise, that's the definition of slavery. And I think we actually went into this. I talked a lot about this in Charlotte this week. Not understanding what the rules of the game were. But then I read another quote today that's really good that I want to read before we get started. And really, if this wasn't a part 2, I probably would have named this, podcast. I probably would have named this show One Decision. Wow. And so the quote says, one decision: resolve now that you will not be poor. The greatest evils and the worst of crimes is poverty. Our first duty, a duty to which every other consideration should be sacrificed, is not to be poor. And I often talk about this in one of the modules. I can't remember whether it was Financial Revolution Quick Start. It was one of the earlier ones, so it probably was that one, or even Money Made Easy. But I talked about how a lot of times people never make the decision not to be poor. And I remember years ago when we first started out, I actually had someone ask me, well, have you ever made the decision not to be poor? And it caused me to really stop in my tracks and think. It was like, well, no, I've never made the decision not to be poor. So I opened up my mouth and I said, I make a decision today from this moment on that I will not be poor. And so I had already, my hair is braided. I don't know how I have hair. But I made a decision then that I would not be poor. And so with that in light, do you have anything to say about that quote?
So I just wanted to add to the quote you read last week, something that I didn't see, but I saw this time when you read it, right? The second.
You gotta know.
Right? So there has to be an exposure in putting yourself in a position to learn. Right? And then from that learning comes the understanding. It's important to put yourself in a position to learn how to operate in free enterprise, to learn the rules of business and the tax laws associated with it. So
I was just going to say, relating to the quote, that I feel like there's also different types of like wealth as well as poverty. So when they say like, you know, it's, what does it say? It's one of the worst crimes is poverty, and that you will not be poor. I feel like that's also poor in terms of like knowledge, and poverty in terms of like just more than actually
not necessarily money.
Currency. It doesn't necessarily have to be money, because you know the most valuable currency is knowledge. Yeah, that's what people, and they leverage the knowledge
applied knowledge.
Yeah,
because I know a lot of really smart people that are still poor. But listen, I found the scripture this past weekend in the Bible, and it says that God watches over knowledge. I have here a statement that I would like you guys to chime in on. And it says, when you make up in your mind that you are done with poverty, you will charter a new direction. If your direction hasn't changed, neither has your mindset.
Wow.
Action should be in alignment with what you believe. Now, there's so much in that one statement for me. And because I may not say it out loud when I'm talking to people, but you know, a lot of times people think they can read one book on mindset and I've changed my mindset. And it's a continual work.
Yes,
it doesn't just happen. You didn't get the mindset that you currently have overnight. So just because you read that your mindset need to be changed doesn't mean that it's changed. And so one of the proof of a changed mindset is changed beliefs and changed actions, and then you get different results. Exactly. And so when you make up in your mind that you're done with poverty, you will charter a new direction, and one of those new directions is not making excuses of why you haven't read something, why you didn't do something different, why you didn't show up. You know, and so I think that's really important. So if the direction of your life, the direction of your money, the direction of your health, your relationships, I don't care what it is, if the direction has not changed, then you didn't make a decision. Because all of that needs to be in alignment together. Alignment is so important. I talked a lot about alignment in last night. I spoke at a church last night. As soon as we got back in town, I had enough time to hurry up and change my clothes and head out. And I didn't get home until midnight, but I talked about the importance of alignment in your life with your passion and your purpose of why you're actually here on earth, and then the alignment of what you're doing right now in life. And so, you know, one of the reasons why we don't find fulfillment or joy in what we're doing is because we're not living our lives according to our purpose. And so alignment is very important. And so when you make up in your mind that you're done with poverty, you will charter a new direction. Do you have anything to say about that?
I just thought it was good, that point that you said about just because you realize that your mindset needs to be changed doesn't mean that it has changed. And I feel like a lot of people confuse the two things, because you can do something like read, you know, Born to Multiply, and be like, okay, I realize now that there's something wrong. But again, like you talked about in the stages of learning, it's all about you. Yeah, it's all about you not only realizing that that there's things that you don't know and things that you need to seek knowledge regarding, but you actually go out and you make those changes. So it's not just, you know, reading the books and becoming aware that this is applicable to you. It's going out and taking actions that will, you know, really drive that knowledge home, so that you can see the change that, you know, the books are talking about that happen for those people that are writing the books. Yeah. So I feel like it's really important to realize that there's a difference between you realizing that you need to make a shift and then you making that shift. That's not just one and the same. And you actually start to make that shift through your actions.
Yeah, right. Correct.
I was just going to say, if you don't make a decision, you are actually making a decision.
Right. You're right.
Right. If you don't make a decision to be prosperous, you don't make a decision to gain, right? 20 plus years. It wasn't 1 year to reprogram and then success. It's been constant reprogramming, because there's 20, 30 years of programming that needs to be changed.
Right.
And that does not occur overnight. So we're constantly learning, constantly evolving, constantly gaining new information. So don't rest because you see some level of success, right? Keep pushing, keep acquiring new knowledge so that you can continue to grow.
Most definitely. And so every year we push the envelope on that.
Yes, we do.
We're constantly joining different masterminds and programs, high level mastermind and programs, and we've probably spent just close to $400,000 or more just in educating ourselves. And so that's important. You're right. We do push the envelope every year because there's always a new level to grow to. I don't think you ever fully arrive. I mean,
no, you shouldn't, right? I think some people feel like they do arrive, and at that point they stop pushing, right? But for us, I think it's building legacy, right? Generational legacy. It is also empowering people to do more. So as people grow and go through velocity and go through the programs and see some level of success, that continues to push us because they want more.
I just had a second person today, Carmen, graduate of Velocity, who wants to come back, and she's like, "Look, Queen,
that pushes us."
But when you start helping people get significant leaps in their life and results, when they do go out and they take someone else's class or course or whatever, and they're not seeing the same growth,
right?
They come back to where they got the most growth. But okay, how about this quote? Millionaires understand that they have the innate talents and gifts. Mm-hmm. They insinuate their positive strengths and skills, and they refuse to permit what they can't do to interfere with what they can do, what they are uniquely gifted at doing.
Wow.
And a lot of times I feel like we concentrate on everything that's going wrong in our lives with our money, how we can't afford this or we can't afford this, but you never stop to ask yourself, how can you afford it? Yeah. And so I often tell people this, God is the ultimate creator, right? And so the Bible says that he breathed the life, the breath of Zoe, life, God kind of life on the inside of us. And so the moment you say that you can't afford something is the moment that you cut off the same creative ability that God has. He literally gave that to us. And the moment that you say that you can't afford something or you can't do something, you cut off that creative ability to flow on the inside of you. You cut off the downloads and the resources that heaven could give to you in the form of ideas and witty inventions, because you just stop and say, I can't afford it. But here's the thing. Money will rise to the level that you do. I say that in my book. And so if you never create the space for growth, for you to do something different, and you just stop at, this event costs this much, I can't afford to go. Or once I gave someone a book, an assignment. It was a particular industry that they wanted to start a business in. And I gave this young man a book that he needed to go get. And he came back to me and he said, that book was $50. And so I looked at him and I made a decision right then and there that I wasn't going to work with him no more. Like, I don't have time in my life.
That's a whole nother message. Cost versus value.
Yeah, cost versus value. And he didn't understand that, yes, the book was $50, but that knowledge would have accelerated his path. It would have saved him time. It would have saved him money. Yes. It would have saved him making mistakes. And so he didn't see that. That's because he didn't raise his head high enough to see opportunities. And so wealthy people don't make excuses for what they can't do. They literally put all of their energy on the things that they can do, what they are excellent at, what they are great at. And if they're not good at something, they'll make the investment to become better, or they'll pay somebody to do it for them.
Crystal's tardy. I can't believe I'm late for school. No, that's what I was going to say. I was just going to add to what you read. I was just going to say one statement, right? You leverage your strengths and you hire/barter for your weaknesses.
Right.
Outsource.
Right? And I think that's what, outsource, barter, hire, whatever. Because I understand everybody may not be in the position to go hire someone.
Yes.
But one of the things we need to learn to do in our community is how to barter.
How to barter.
Right? Let's trade my gift for your gift. I do it all
the time. Now, listen.
Got to be a fair trade, right?
It has to be a fair trade, and it has to be of equal value or better value. And so, because I was getting ready to say something that I just bartered recently, but I don't want to be bombarded with a bunch of stuff. People telling me,
They want to barter with you.
They want to barter something. So I'll just skip
Adam, were you going to say something, Adam?
Yeah, I was just going to say that instead of talking about like what you can't do and that type of thing, I feel like to piggyback on what you said about leveraging your natural skills, I feel like what you need to do is put your brain power toward you figuring out how to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish using the skills that you have.
That's good.
So if it's like if you want to get, some deal done or something accomplished, but you don't know how to do it, figure out how to do that within the scope of your realm of expertise. Yep. So if you have to work really hard doing something that you know you're really good at, and then you can take that money and get somebody to bring someone in to accomplish what you need their skills to do to get to that next thing that you wanted. Yep. You know what I'm saying? But you're leveraging what you already have in order to get there. So it's not what you can't do. Figure out how you can do it, but you might have to do it a unique way based on your skills.
So let me dive into your business for a minute, Adam, and we'll share it with the rest of the world. Talk about how you did the meme cast and how you were able to leverage outside skills to help in an area where you may not necessarily be as strong.
Mm-hmm. So I know, like, are you talking about like
the editing?
The editing,
yeah. Yep. So it was honestly like, if you start doing something too, a lot of times things will just fall in place if you actually take initiative and you want to get something done. And I feel like
momentum. There you go. That too, and momentum.
Yeah, it was like momentum. When we got started, and I didn't know how to edit. I mean, Jonathan had very rudimentary editing skills from a class that he took.
Right.
So he edited the first episode, but one of my friends heard it and was like, "Hey, I love it. Editing things. I'd be happy to hop in and do this for you. Wow. Just to be a part of it."
Wow.
So then, of course, like, we pay him for his time now. He started out doing it for free, but it's just like once you start doing stuff, people gravitate toward people that like get things done. People that are they like to feel like they're a part of something. Yep. So if you just go out and start doing something, the movement, a lot of times you'll come in contact with people, because once you put that out into the universe, it reciprocates that same type of energy.
Yes. So when we were at Charlotte at this particular tour stop for Born to Multiply, one of my Velocity clients, Sharon Johnson, who has her own company called The Lady GC. Yep. She's an amazing general contractor, but she has a degree in architectural engineering. One of them. She has a couple of degrees, but she came up and she really just gave her testimony of how when she first met me, how she was really in a bad place financially, and she said that one of the things that stuck with her is because I'm always telling people to stay in motion. When you are in motion, God doesn't need to send a banker or pharaoh or butler in your path when you're sitting still. You're not doing anything. And so why should someone pass you the ball if you're just standing there doing nothing? Yep. Like the chances of you getting the ball down the field to, get a touchdown are going to be slim to no if you're just sitting on your doing nothing. Yep. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that she talked about is how because she was in motion, people started contacting her. The city of Greensboro started contacting her for contracts and deals, but it was because she was in motion. And she said a whole lot of other things.
If I could quote her on one thing that she said, this was sort of offline after the event, and it was very powerful. Just a real simple analogy that she gave me. She said, Rob, once I got in motion, she said, the only thing I can equate it to is like the glass door at the grocery store.
Wow.
Right? As I got close to the door, the sensor picked up my motion and the door opened. Mm-hmm. So if you're sitting still, that motion sensor is not picking you up. Mm-hmm. It's not until you get in motion, right? And again, the action has to be focused. You can't just be wandering around. The action has to be focused. But once you get close to that door, that sensor will pick you up and doors will open for you that will remain shut as long as you sit on your do.
Yeah, that's really good. She talked about how also, I was sharing with the audience because she said she didn't mind, but how when we were in South Carolina a couple weeks ago, we were in the car and she sent us a text and she was like, hey, she said, I just want you to know I just hit my first $10,000 a month. Yep. And this is why she's still working a job. Most of my clients do still work a job and so they're building their business on the side. But how many of you would love to have an extra $10,000 a month?
That's right.
And so I'm so proud of her because she's actually getting back into real estate. She just got approved for her line of credit. She can start paying
buying properties.
Cash,
That's right.
Buying properties with cash. And so Anyway,
in motion.
She was in motion.
Yep.
I just want to say again, as long as you're focusing too on like providing value to people,
Right.
Yes.
because you guys always talk about value, then everything else will fall in place. Because that's one thing that when Sterling and I started, I was like, listen, it's not going to sound like, movie production when we first started. We didn't
Right.
know where to record. Chris told us, that we need to be in this type of space with this type of microphone.
Right.
We didn't know any of that. I was like, look, at the end of the day, we just need to bring good content.
Yep.
I was like, they didn't come here because of the good editing. They didn't come here because of the music. They didn't come here, because of the sound effects.
Yep.
They came because of the content. So at the end of the day, because I know listening to some of Gary Vee's podcasts, you guys know this, there'll be sound bites, recorded from but there are some that are from like phone conversations that
that's
are
right.
you can barely even hear them, but it's good content. He's like, look, I don't care if it's amazing quality, I just need it to be good content.
Yes.
So if you're focusing on bringing value, everything else will start to kind of fall into place, including the money, because all that follows value.
That's
like
right.
Wealth follows value, success follows value,
That's
and
right.
other people see the value in that and they are gravitated toward it.
Yep.
So I feel like it's always like value driven, so you don't have to worry about. That's where the whole analysis paralysis thing comes into view.
Please hear what Adam's saying.
As long as
you're saying a lot.
value, and that's the whole thing.
Okay.
Is that
You are saying a lot.
Go ahead and finish.
Oh yeah, I just did. I didn't
give
want
the
to say
name
too
of your
much time.
podcast.
Yeah, Darlena's saying give the name of your podcast.
Oh yeah, so it's called the Meme Podcast. That's MEME.
And it's M period E period M period E period.
Yeah.
And so it means, it stands for?
It stands for Mindset, Exposure, Money, and Entrepreneurship.
Please share it.
Yeah, so that one, it's on like all platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. But yeah, we drop new episodes every Wednesday. So.
And it's a great episode. I mean, it's a great podcast. I actually listen to it all the time.
Sure,
My name is LaShawn Holland, and I endorse this man. So, okay, let's go to the next one. It says, others are quick to point out what you should be, but you are the only person who can decide what you will be. That was a quote by Dave Stewart. And this is really, really good because, a lot of times people, and yes, Deandra, thank you for posting that. That's exactly what it is. A lot of times people have over the years a lot to say about how we've raised our kids. Not all of it has been good. Not all of it has been great. And so, to be honest, we don't care. That's the first thing. We got instructions, from God, and I am 100%.
So there was agreement in our house that superseded any external voice.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so a lot of times people are quick to point out what you should be doing or what you should be, but that's based off of their view. It's not, they didn't create you. They're not God. They didn't put purpose on the inside of you. And I think we give so much weight sometimes to what another person says. That stuff doesn't work. Years ago, and I'm positive, matter of fact, I know for a fact that this particular person now sees the difference of what we were after. But I'll never forget years ago when we first started, I don't even know what made us share this on Thanksgiving with our whole entire family, that we were flying out to Las Vegas, and how we were going to start a business. And literally, I remember one particular family member was so negative and told us that it wouldn't work, and you guys got to be careful. And I know people that started businesses before and they lost everything that they had. And this was the first year that they actually saw us in action and knew all of what we had done, and they were so stunned, but came back and had some really beautiful things to say about us. But we have never allowed what people say stop the vision that we have, because they didn't give the vision to us, and so it didn't matter what people say.
I feel like this goes back to the point that we touched on last week of like I still can't remember what the two types are called, but the actualist versus the normalist. And you can say like, oh, something should be this way, like all this knowledge should be easily accessible to certain people, but it isn't. So when you say like, why do you think you should be able to send your kids to the same school systems as all these other kids? Well, yeah, we should be able to, but all the schools around here just didn't provide what we needed out of a school. So it was just like, yes, it should be this way, but we can't go in and change the whole school system. We can't go in and create a better network of parents within that school system.
Or I think
I
wasn't willing to do it at the expense of my child's education, because that was one of them, one of the many examples. But for me, I just wasn't willing to try to do that at the expense, of having my kids in the same school system that Rob and I came out of. That just didn't serve the vision of where we were trying to grow our family. And so
I just feel like it goes back to that idea of like what something is versus what it should be. And you can't change the whole world in a day. We know the school system should be better, around here than it is, but that is something that we can't directly control.
Right. We know what it is.
So you also can't police anybody else's wallet. Like what someone decides to do with their money. I wasn't out here selling drugs, but anyway.
So I feel like it just comes down to that. You guys leverage your natural skills and your talents, in order to do the best in this world with how things are, not with how they should be. Yeah. You could have, had me in a school around here that I wouldn't have flourished in as much. Just because, skipping the grades and everything wouldn't have worked out developmentally.
And you wouldn't have learned your $20 words.
Exactly. So I feel like it's just, it's always that thing where you have to focus on doing the best with the circumstances that exist now, not with the circumstances that should be. So I feel like, and you have to take that to heart when you're talking about, when people point out what you should be doing. Right. Well, what you should be doing, according to them, may not actually work out, for profit, especially in the real world.
Right.
They're like, why are you charging people for this? You should be doing this out of the goodness of your heart. Well, then they shouldn't be charging me for my electric bill. They should just be giving it to them out of the goodness of their heart. So it's just like, it doesn't matter how things should be, it matters how they are. So that's what you have to solve the problems of how things are and not how they should be.
So I'm going to take a little bit different angle with this, and I'll be brief because I know we're running out of time. But I think it's important who you place yourself around.
Oh,
right.
Most definitely.
We talked about this last night with John chapter 5.
Yes.
Right? And just going Bible real quick, but the man at the pool of Bethesda and the people that he allowed himself to be around.
Yeah.
And we think it's so important to pay attention to the company you keep, because those are the people that you allow access to speak into your life.
Right.
You don't want words from everybody.
Right. Yep. We talk about that a lot in the book Born to Multiply.
Yes.
Amazon bestseller in several different categories in 24 hours.
One other thing too, if I can go ahead and make a plug that ties into that statement, I think it's important. One of the things that you share during the book tour is doing your spiritual vision.
Yeah, but they don't get that because they didn't make the same level of investment.
But you got to be there.
Yeah.
You still got New Orleans, you still got Detroit, you still got Houston. If you haven't registered yet, you need to be there.
Yeah.
That spiritual vision worksheet is a game changer.
Yes, it really is. But
www.lashawnholland.com/book tour.
Yes. So the next quote I want to read is, we need faith-filled men and women who are energetic enough, bold enough, determined enough, and gritty enough to sign their names on the front of a paycheck as well as the back.
Wow.
That was a quote by Leah Brown. And so, I think it's true. It takes courage to be able to build wealth. When, I often think about where we started. We didn't have a blueprint.
Right.
We didn't have, I didn't have a vision of not even anybody at my church. I didn't have a vision of anybody in my family or your family that was doing what we wanted to do. Yeah. And the way that we wanted to do it.
And that's probably most people.
Yeah, and so it can be not only a lonely place, if you don't learn how to encourage yourself, it can be discouraging at times. And so it really does take courage for you to be able to build. It takes determination for you to be able to do it. You do have to be bold when everybody else is telling you what something wouldn't work, or even when stuff don't work out, right? Because every life isn't perfect. It's not set up that way. It'd be great if it was, but it's not. And so you have to be bold enough to say, hey, this vision is still worth me staying in motion over.
Yes.
And so we do need more faith-filled men and faith-filled women who are, bold enough and determined enough and have enough courage. They're courageous enough to be able to go after and build their dreams, because it takes all of that and more to be able to build wealth.
And that's why you have to constantly too make sure that you're surrounding yourself with like positive voices, even if they're not people. So in terms of like podcasts and all that other stuff, like you need to be listening to something that keeps you driven, that keeps you bold, that keeps that fire underneath you every day, even if you're not coming into contact, especially if you're not coming into contact with like-minded people that are driven in the same manner.
And listen, parents, I don't care if your kids are complaining. Like you see Adam now, but Adam and Jonathan and Zoe all used to complain all the time when they would get in my car. I'm not a big music listener every single day, but I would always have Tony Robbins playing, you know, or just some T. Harv Eker, somebody I was always having to play out loud in the car. And they, you know, before they came out with Beats headphones and Apple, their cell phones and stuff, they would have to sit in the car and listen to it. And they'd be like, oh my God, are we listening to Tony Robbins again? Didn't you? Mm-hmm. He used to complain all the time about it. And so, but now they see the value in it, and it has shaped their thinking so much. You know, even when there were times when I know Jonathan playing football would be discouraged. And, you know, one particular time he was in competition and Rob told the coaches to get his brother down on the field for him. And so Adam went down on the field and he told Jonathan, he whispered to him, no one remembers second place. Do you remember when you told him that?
I don't even remember that. I don't have such hot memories.
Yeah, that's right. The memory of Adam is blessed in Jesus' name. But Adam told him no one remembers second place. In that particular event, Jonathan pulled out and came in first place and got a medal for it. And so you have to have those type of people around you. And again, like Adam said, sometimes it's in the form of podcasts, or it's in the form of, you know, audio recordings, or even if you have to record yourself on your cell phone.
Encouraging yourself.
You know, at times, I don't care what you have to do it, because it is important to stay in a positive environment.
Yep.
And then what time is it?
So we've been at it, almost 40 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay, we got one more.
So I just wanted to add one thing to number 6, and I promise I'll be brief.
Okay.
Others are quick to point out what you should be. That was number 7. We need faith-filled men and women who are energetic enough, bold enough, determined enough, and gritty enough to sign their name on the paycheck as well, on the front as well as the back. Let your calling be your compass.
Oh, that's awesome.
Let your calling be your compass. No matter what happens, and one of the things we don't do a very good job of is sharing all of the struggles
we're gonna talk about that we go through. We're gonna talk about that next family.
Week. But it's the call that keeps us focused and keeps us navigating in the right direction.
We're gonna actually talk about that next week.
Be your compass.
I actually was talking to someone last week who asked me, and she's a client right now inside of Velocity, and she said, you know, what did you do sometimes when you were discouraged? Because I don't have anybody in my family that's really encouraging me. And I began to really share a lot of things that have happened in our lives that, you know, most people would deem as being a failure, but I don't believe we fail. I just believe that believers have to regroup. Amen. So how did we regroup? And I'm going to talk about that next week. Yep. But the final one is know that you have financial equity. Equity is an accounting term. Equity, or owner's equity, is the difference between the value of assets and the value of the liabilities of something owned. Woo. And so know that you have financial equity. For example, if someone owns a car worth $15,000 but owes $5,000, the car is a bad example. Let's say a house. If they own a house, you know, that's worth $15,000, but they it's an investment property, but they owe $5,000 on it, you know, against the loan, the car, that's the liability. It represents $10,000 worth of equity. So what do I mean by you have financial equity? In closing, this is what I mean by you have financial equity. If you take up all of God's resources, the Bible says that he owns, you know, 1,000 cattle, on a hill. Yep. And so the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. If you take all of God's resources plus yours and you subtract all of your debt, you still have equity.
Wow.
You still have equity. Use your equity. What is your equity? Your talents, your abilities, and your gifts. That is your financial equity. And so, anything?
Can't touch that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to add on anything. Too much time, but honestly, it is. So keep investing in yourself, because again, that's the investment that pays the biggest dividends. But if you're constantly, evolving and getting new strategies and that type of stuff, your assets in terms of like your mental assets will always outpace those liabilities. Because you'll start to see again that compounding knowledge. Because once you know how to, maneuver through asset classes and really like change, types of income. If you can take earned income, turn it into portfolio income, and then into passive income, like that's compounding knowledge where you'll really just start to see a bigger picture. And I feel like, at that point, you won't have any amount of debt that you can't overcome, because you'll be able to create opportunity under any circumstances.
Right. So with that note, don't forget this week that you do have financial equity. No matter what it looks like, you have equity. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can share this broadcast. Do me a favor. Let's try something different this time. Why don't you take the link from this particular money school and post it on your personal page, and let's share it. We got to get this information out to more people. I was going to say more believers. I don't want to just segment people out. I think everybody needs to hear this information. And
you could be that influencer that person has been looking for to, get that friend who is also trying to do something with their lives.
That's true.
And I feel like people really underestimate the value that they could bring to someone else's
synergy.
life.
Yep. So anyway, thank you guys so much, and I look forward to seeing you in New Orleans on Saturday. The Big Easy. So I'm really excited about this tour stop. Actually, we have more people in New Orleans that we have had register for any tour stop. So
and we still got 4 days.
And we still have 4 days. And so thank you so much. Those of you that are in New Orleans, I look forward to seeing you on Saturday. Everybody else, find another tour stop and go register and meet me there. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.